Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
He has been at the forefront for the fight for human rights and the restoration of dignity in Africa and Kenya, to be specific. Tonight we are hosting Khalid Hussein, the Executive Director of Haki Africa. This is the Weekly Matters and I'm your host, AhmedKadar. Khalid, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, my brother.
You see, we have followed you for quite a long. We were young, either reading about you, and now that you have come of age, to follow the good thing and what you are doing. And it has been appreciated across. But before we go deep into the discussion, who is Hussein Khalid?
Well, Hussein Khalid is a local, common citizen, just like every other Kenyan that we see out there. I schooled here in Nairobi. I went to university. I studied law. So by profession, I'm a lawyer. But I've always had a passion for human rights since I was very young. So when I grew up and I got the opportunity to venture into a profession, I decided that human rights and the struggle for promotion and protection of human rights is what I wanted to do. So I've worked in many different civil society organizations like the Center for Law and Research International, Kenya Human Rights Commission, Muslims for Human Rights, and currently I'm the Executive Director of Haki Africa.
You see, Hussein, there are people when they graduate from law school, they go and join the best law firm, they go make money.
Yes.
But you have chosen a path that is quite rewarding, yes, but quite challenging also in terms of the risks involved,
Yes.
the lectures you forgo.
Yes.
Who inspired you? Because the same way, on this one we are going to come to it later in the discussion, a man who became the president of the US had also the same opportunity, but he took a different path of also, in the fight for justice and
Yes.
social and equality within society. What inspired you not to go the right, the path of money and prosperity, just in quotes, and you went for for the fights for human rights and fighting for justice?
That's very true, and you reminded me of my mother,
Yes.
who always says whenever she hears there's a demonstration or there's an altercation somewhere I'm involved, she always wonders why I never chose to just go the easy way, to go to a law firm, as you've put it, and make lots of money and just be safe and sound. But I think for me, what has really pushed me towards human rights and activism is the struggles that I've seen throughout my life. I grew up in Nairobi, in Ngara, and partly in Isili and other places. And we saw how the poor was surviving, just trying to eke a living. I also grew up partly in Mombasa, where we also saw how discrimination and marginalization was playing its, rearing its ugly face on the local communities. I come from a community that have been denied, for example, national identity cards. As we grew up, we felt like second-class citizens because we kept seeing this, marginalization throughout our lives. And I felt, for me, I want to do something to leave our communities, to leave our country in a better place than the way I found it. So it's not about me as an individual, but what is happening within the community and what can I do to actually help improve our community. So my inspiration actually comes from the people whom I work with, people whom I help, who then come to me and tell me, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, I would still be in that, difficult situation. That is what motivates me to actually remain in the struggle for human rights in Kenya.
Now, having seen the people struggling and what they go through daily lives, and your initiative to make a difference in their
Yes.
life has taken you many places and through, as you have just mentioned, the kind of organization you have worked.
Yes.
But today I want us to emphasize on Haki Africa,
Sure.
where you are currently. And you have started, when I say you, because you are the executive director of Haki Africa, and I'm sure you have a team that you work with.
Yes.
And Haki Africa, you started 2012. Since then, it's about now, I think, 6 years.
Yes.
What has been your biggest challenge since then?
Haki Africa began in 2012, and it began as a dream, as an idea, where we had scholars and also academicians, but more so professionals who came together and said we need a voice that will not only talk about Mombasa and the coast region, but where we'll take our message out to Kenya, but also the continent of Africa. So the idea was mooted around 2012, but it wasn't until 2013 when we started operations. So we took about a year to sort of like crystallize the ideas, to put them together before we started our operations. And Haki Africa, we've had many challenges. I remember at times we had to like run away because our lives were in danger. You know, we had threats directly to the institution, and we had to go to safe houses. We've had challenges where we've had at the beginning to, you know, use our own resources to do the work that we are doing. But as you've asked, the greatest challenge so far came when the government decided to freeze our accounts and to label Haki Africa as a suspected sympathizer of Al-Shabaab and terrorism. That was the greatest challenge, because at that time we were actually trying to struggle to help the government to fight violent extremism. And for us as an organization, because we took that as a passion, we wanted to help our communities to get away from that nasty business of violence and chaos and all that, and to see that the same government that we were actually trying to help to address these issues is the same government that came back and labeled us as sympathizers. I think that was the greatest challenge. It was a very low moment where we felt, are we in the right business?
Isn't it ironical that the same time that Haki Africa was blacklisted, you were a guest at the White House, White House as as a guest of President Obama.
Correct.
In an extremism forum. How ironical can that be?
Extremely ironical.
Yes.
Because I was at the White House with Obama, as you've mentioned, discussing the same issues, how to engage communities in violent extremism. Because until that time, the world over, the approach was the hard approach, where you use force, where you use weaponry to counter violent extremism. But it was at that point and during that conference, where I was lucky to be one of only 2 Kenyans to have been invited to that meeting, where the shift now changed. And the talk was now countering violent extremism through community and organizations' involvement. And in February, then we had March, and early April, the government then issued the Gazette notice declaring Haki Africa and other institutions as sympathizers. So yes, it was extremely ironical. On one side, you have the greatest power, perhaps the greatest enemy of terrorism.
Yes.
Acknowledging the work that we're doing and saying that this is the way we need to go. Yes. And then our own government coming back and saying no, that this is not the right thing. So we were actually quite astonished by that move.
You, at the same time, you came out and said that was an intimidation.
Yes.
Yeah, you came out strongly. And, and I remember, in the press that the embassy is saying, they stand with the Haki Africa and with you as an individual. Yeah. Why will you be intimidated for doing such a good work in radicalization? In eradicating radicalization and extremism within the Muslim community. Why will you be intimidated for doing such a good work?
As Haki Africa, we knew that was an attempt to intimidate us, but we did not get intimidated because we knew this is part of the struggle for a new Kenya, for human rights and for rule of law to prevail in the country. And I believe that the government decided to take that move because also they wanted to, we had just had the Garissa University attack. Yes. And there was a lot of uproar from members of the community about how the government responded to that particular attack. We were hearing of the minister being flown down by chopper, but the squad, the army team that was actually supposed to deal with the attack were brought in by vehicles. So there was a lot of unclear evidence. And we felt that the government needed to divert the attention. And they felt the best way to do that is by singling out 1 or 2 institutions and individuals and to label them. And that took away the discussion away from Garissa and now into Haki Africa and the likes. So we felt that, it's wrong. Yes. And that is why immediately that happened, we decided to go to court to challenge the government's move.
Now, coming to your main work as Haki Africa.
Yes.
You know that the war on terror had casualties. Much as terror must be fought and must be stopped,
Yes.
it has to be done within, what you always say, within the framework of the law.
Yes.
And constitutional people to be
Guarantees.
given their rights.
Yes.
Now, you have documented, Haki Africa has documented a lot of historical, apart from the historical ones, a lot of disappearances,
Even current ones,
even
yes.
extrajudicial killings.
Yes.
Maybe you can give us an inside, look of how things were and how they are right now, and if there was any changes.
Yeah, I would say 2-3 years back, probably around 2014, 2015, the situation was very bad. And, we had preachers who were openly encouraging the youth to get into jihad, to cross over to Somalia, and to engage in, what would have been perceived to be terror activities. And for quite some time, the moderates and other leaders spoke to government, telling them we need to find a way of stopping this process. But the government remained silent. So we saw hordes of youth actually, being recruited to join this war or Al-Shabaab. And also around that time, the government decided to work with the Somali government to recruit into the army of Somali. If you recall, there was a call, and many youth, particularly from Somali origin, responded to that call and were actually trained by security forces and were taken to Somalia. Only for them to get there, we understand, some of them to now change allegiance and to cross over to join Al-Shabaab. So there were a number of issues that actually contributed to many youth crossing the borders and joining Al-Shabaab in one way or another. And back home, we had a lot of, ideology shift. Many youth were now moving from the moderate Islam to now the extreme Islam, where people were, especially in Mombasa, were being told, you can't just sit back and watch when people are struggling, people are suffering. You need to take up the fight to cross and go and make a difference.
Which is wrong.
Yep, of course,
Yes.
definitely.
Yes.
And we felt that this is not right. And we had religious leaders who were actually speaking up against much of this. And as human rights organizations, we felt that the government needed to do more. But instead, we saw the government responding in its usual manner, using the hard approach. So they were killing this youth, they were killing preachers, and we felt this is not right. Because the more people were being killed, the more the security forces used extra legal means, the more they won the terrorists and the criminal groups undeserved sympathy. Because it was now counterproductive. Instead of them stopping the youth, that killing and that those disappearances and everything actually made the terrorists look like they are being tortured, they are being discriminated and things like that. So we spoke up against this and we said, yes, we support the war against terrorism, and up to this time, we do support the fight against terrorism, but we're insisting that this fight against terrorism must be done within the confines of the law. Any individual who crosses the boundaries of the law and commits extra legal crimes, then that person must face the full wrath of the law. Whether it's a private citizen or whether it's a police officer. If you go beyond the confines of the law, then action needs to be taken. And that was our rallying call. So then the issues were very tough, but we somehow managed. We tried to speak to government, we tried to speak to communities, we tried to speak to Muslim leaders, and with time, we saw that we are making progress. And right now, we are much better than where we were 2-3 years ago.
Of course, we are much better than we were in 2013 or around there. We are going for a short break, but before we take a break, I would like to remind our viewers we're also live on our social media platforms. Facebook, that is Horizon TV Kenya. Twitter at Horizon TV Kenya. Myself at AhmedKadar 1. What's your Twitter handle?
Hussein Khalid.
And his Twitter handle is Hussein Khalid. You can engage us live on our platforms. But for now, we are going for a break. Keep it there.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the Weekly Matters, your favorite show every Friday night. And now, as usual, I'm your host, AhmedKadar. Tonight we are discussing issues of human rights, justice, social equity, and all that. And who else to discuss better than Khalid Hussein, the Executive Director for Haki Africa. Welcome back. Before we went for break, we have been discussing about the issue of disappearance and extrajudicial killings and why the fight against terror must be done within the confines of the law, as you put it. But having said that, recently, you met the new DPP. We have a new DPP who seems to be doing things somehow according to the way they are supposed to be done, which is a departure from the old past, the way cases used to, basically, a fresh breath of air.
Yes.
You met him,
Yes.
As per the media reports. What were you up to? Did he pay just a visit, or was there any planned meeting? Or is there a joint cooperation between Haki Africa and office of the DPP?
Yeah, I mean, as you've put it clearly, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution is currently being headed by Mr. Nuruddin Haji. And when he came into office, we saw how he was very committed to matters of social justice, and particularly the issue of corruption. And we felt that this is a person that we could probably work with in terms of addressing matters, extrajudicial killings, human rights, and things like that. So we originally wrote to him and asked him for a meeting, and we explained to him that here in Mombasa, we are experiencing difficulties in terms of extrajudicial killings and disappearances. Initially, he welcomed us to have a meeting with him in Nairobi, and of course we traveled to Nairobi where we met with him, and we discussed and expressed our concerns that we felt needed to be addressed by his office. And at that meeting, we also agreed that when he gets time, he will definitely come to Mombasa. So, true to his word, he came to Mombasa, and when he came to Mombasa, he looked us up, and we told him that the situation was actually getting worse. In Mombasa, currently, we have a wave of crime. Due to various issues, perhaps we'll discuss them later in the show, we are seeing youth who are now taking up arms, pangas, machetes, knives, and engaging in crime and killing and the likes. And the response of the police, unfortunately, has been, again, using the hard approach, where they would also kill and shoot and all that. So we expressed our concerns to the DPP, and we told him that there is need for him to go out publicly to speak against these issues. And we were very happy when he agreed to do that, and that is when we held the press conference where he spoke openly and said that extrajudicial killings have no place in our society, and he said he doesn't think that that is a system that is officially being used by government, and that he will investigate the killings and disappearances that we will present to them. On that day, we presented to him a list of 37 cases, where since January to that time, which was mid-September, we had documented as Haki Africa. And we presented to him these cases, and he said he will get back to us in a few weeks' time. Again, true to his word, we've already begun seeing investigations happening. As we speak currently, we have 1 or 2 cases where investigations have been completed, and we expect that officers will be charged in due course. And this is the first time we're speaking about this here at Horizon TV, so that people can know that action is actually going to follow. And we're looking forward to that action by the DPP, the Director of Criminal Investigations, and of course the Inspector General.
Now, talking of still in the question of extrajudicial killings and the police, sometimes not doing things according to within the confines of the law.
Yes.
I want to take you back to Slee, a place where you grew up.
Yes.
If you remember very well, there was a time when 2 young boys were shot on the streets of Slee by a police officer.
Yes.
And it's everywhere. It was in the public domain, and that matter has also came back this year in a documentary form.
Yeah.
Have you ever, as Haki Africa, pursued, despite the guys being labeled or called criminals, I think they deserve justice through they should be arrested, taken to court. Has Haki Africa ever gotten that story?
Yes.
Or are your cases basically within the coast?
Yes. You're very right. I partly, I mean, for some time in my life, I lived in Isli. I remember 3rd Street,
Yes.
but then also Biafra and the areas. So I know how the environment is. Insecurity issues and such kinds of things, they are always a problem. And as a community, people have always complained about insecurity. But we were astonished to see someone being killed in broad daylight in front of the public. This is something that is totally unacceptable. And seeing this, of course, we communicated. We have our partners here in Nairobi, and we raised our concern. Particularly, I remember Haki Africa writing a letter to the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to demand that action must be taken. You know, it's very important for us to remember that the law is here to serve everyone. No one is above the law. Not the president, not the opposition leader, not the inspector general. Everyone must be guided by the law. And the law says every person is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law, not by a police officer, not by the public when they do mob justice, not by me, not by you. It's only a court of law that can confirm guilt or innocence. So when any person takes up the responsibility of the court and goes on not only to condemn someone, but also to punish that someone with the extreme measure of killing, then that is something we cannot allow. And we wrote to the Inspector General of Police, we wrote to IPOA and demanded that action be taken. Of course, they wrote back to us and said investigations are ongoing. And, you know, I think it's about time that we also followed up to know exactly how far those investigations are.
Now, Hussein, there are instances where the public seem to be supporting such kind of incident of the police.
Yeah.
Is it because the publics are tired of, you know, the justice system not taking the due course? Or what is it? How can the public support such kind of things?
It is very wrong for the public to support extra legal actions by the police or any other person for that matter. We must remember that the public also are human beings, and sometimes they also get tired. But we need to constantly remind the people that if you allow the law to be broken on another person, tomorrow it will be done on you. And when that happens, then there will be no other person to defend you because you remained quiet when the others were being killed. So the public must always remember that the laws are put in place by you and me through our representatives in parliament. And security is a right. The Constitution in Article 29 is very clear that every person has the right to security. So when your security is not guaranteed, the right thing to do is to demand from the government to provide security. The right thing to do is not for us to ask the police to kill criminal suspects. These are suspects, and a suspect remains innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. So we urge the public not to support extrajudicial killings, not to support enforced disappearances, because this is not a way we want to go as a society.
Now, and I'm taking you back to the issue of crime in Mombasa.
Yes.
Haki Africa has accused the police of stalling the reform to, you know, to reform the criminals,
Yes.
Gangs, either by eliminating them or by, you know, whichever way how they deal with.
Yes.
Now, as Haki Africa, what are you doing about that? And what's the likely cause of the rampant wave of crime within the county of Mombasa?
You know, Mombasa in the last few months has undergone a lot of economic difficulties. With the SGR that has now started operating in its optimum capacity,
Yes.
we know now that there's a directive that, for example, all cargo that is received at the port of Mombasa is supposed to be automatically sent to Embakasi, the internal inland container depot.
Yes.
This means that all the clearing and forwarding agencies that were operating in Mombasa no longer do their work from Mombasa because all cargo is taken to Nairobi. We also understand that even cargo originally destined for Mombasa and the coast also has to go to Nairobi to be cleared and then to be brought back. So the clearing and forwarding agencies that were the mainstay of the economy of Mombasa have all been shut down. a number of clearing and forwarding agencies have shut down, which has led to thousands of people being laid off. So the economy has completely gone down. People no longer have jobs, and even the indirect beneficiaries of the clearing and forwarding agencies, the hotels, which would normally host maybe these truck drivers when they come to pick their goods, maybe the mama pimas who would sell chapatis and beans to most of these people, also no longer have market for their produce. So Mombasa has seen in a very short period of time, about 6 months or so, the economy being turned upside down. So now this is why we are seeing an increased rates of crime levels. We are seeing drugs now being rampant, and because there are too many idle youth, they no longer have jobs, they have nothing to do, so drugs have become rampant, and this has led to a number of this youth now engaging in crime, because when you use drugs and you don't have money, you have to go out to look for money.
Steal,
exactly,
or snatch bar,
exactly,
those petty crimes.
Exactly,
will definitely graduate to
bigger crimes. Yeah, and we are not saying it's right for them to do this.
Of course,
but it's the situation that we're faced with currently, and this has now led to serious crimes, as you've put it. And now, because of that, the police are now opting to shoot suspects. And we've communicated this. We've told the police that let's initiate a program where we can offer youth employment, particularly income-generating activities.
Reform them.
Exactly. And we are lucky that the authorities have been responding positively, and they are working with us to try and reform this youth. But there are still elements within the police force that do not believe that this youth can actually be reformed, or if they are arrested, if they're taken to the courts, that the justice will be served, and they go back to kill this youth.
Now, that's a sad incident, probably, in Mombasa, the economy.
Yeah.
And now, talking of the economy, right now in the country, I'm sure you understand what is going on and how things are going. We are going for a short break, and we have some few minutes for us to our third. But before we go for the second break, what is your take on the current economic status of the country as a general?
My take is that Kenyans are in a very bad place.
Because economy and justice, all these things are tied.
Exactly.
Yes.
Already, even before these new taxes,
Kenyans
were one of the most highly taxed people in the world. We are actually paying taxes through our noses. So it was extremely disappointing to see that the tax burden is actually further being placed on the common mwananchi, on you and me. So we felt that this is extremely bad, and we are part of a movement together with other partners to try and reverse this. We are trying to collect 1 million signatures so that we can take this issue forward to a referendum so that we can reverse that. Because we feel that there are few people who are making millions every other day, but majority of the people are wallowing in poverty. They say Kenya is a country of 40 millionaires and 40 million beggars. We can no longer have that situation. The gap between the haves and the have-nots is too huge, and we need to narrow that gap, and we need to do it now.
Okay, that is it. But we are taking a short break. But again, I'm going to remind you that we are live on our Facebook page. That is Horizon TV Kenya. Twitter at Horizon TV Kenya. Myself at AhmedKadar 1. And Khalid Hussein at Khalid Hussein of Haki Africa. It has been an interesting discussion, and we will definitely conclude in our last and third segment. But before that, let's take a short break.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Welcome back to the show, and if you are just joining us, we are discussing, as we said previously, the issue of justice, equality, and all that, the human rights issues. And with me today, we are glad and privileged to have Hussein Khalid rather, who is the Executive Director of Haki Africa. And if you have just joined us, we're in the midst of our discussion. Before we went for our break, now I want us to take a different angle to our discussion. Recently, there have been demolitions in the country where land, sitting on riparian land is repossessed. that is building sitting on riparian lands. We have seen the demolitions of serious big structures owned by who is who in this country. Haki Africa has come out openly and said the demolition should come to the coast.
Yes.
Yeah. And we know that also the coast has issue of historical injustice when it comes to land issue. Can you kindly take us through that as you also reflect on the issue of historically injustice as far as land issue is concerned?
Yes, the coast, particularly Mombasa, Malindi, Kwale, the urban centers have had serious challenges when it comes to issues of land. And the challenges were actually brought about by government practices and policies that appeared to be discriminating against the local communities. For example, if you look at Lamu in mainly the islands where the local people reside, to date, we don't have title deeds. The government has not demarcated land, the government has not prepared title deeds, the government has not issued title deeds, and this has left many of the local communities desperate because they don't know when someone will come to demand that they vacate a particular area. But if you look at the mainland, you'll find that title deeds have been issued to communities that probably, came to the region much later than the local communities. If you also look at issues of land, again, historical injustices, we've talked of big projects being implemented within the coast region. For example, the LAPSET project. And we've seen how the government has come in to say that this is government land, so we're not going to compensate anyone. But remember, these communities have been residing in that area for centuries. Even before the scramble for Africa, even before the map of Africa was drawn, these communities were living there. But because at the coast, we live, you and me, we know that my land, my boundary is at that tree.
Yes.
We know that at that stream is where my land ends.
Yes.
And people respect those boundaries. And we've never seen the need of having to go to government to get a title, a map to be drawn and all that. We've respected that. And when I die, my children will also respect those boundaries. They will not cross over to the neighbor because they know this is our land. And because we've done that and we've never seen the need of getting title deeds, now people come and they see that the area is not covered, including the government, and they say this is government land. So the project like LAPSET, the government has come and has taken over land, and you find that, the people are left destitute, not knowing what to do. Coal mining, again.
Yes.
As a people, as a community, we oppose strongly the mining of coal at the coast, the coal plant particularly. We know mining is supposed to be done somewhere else, but the coal plant is supposed to be in Lamu. And we are very, very, very disappointed by the government's decision to proceed with this project because we know it will have such serious environmental degradation issues that we do not want to see and do not want our communities to suffer. Again, if you look at other projects, for example, in the South Coast, the titanium mining, the local communities are crying that their issues are not taken into account. So we also have land issues that have, national and international angles to them. And we feel that more needs to be done. So the local communities up to now are crying out for their rights because, when you have a title deed, you can even go to the loan. You can use that as a surety. You can use that to get
it gives a lot of
loans.
flexibility.
Exactly.
Now, the Jubilee administration has been trying to woo the coast people for the last 5 years. A lot of land, title deed has been issued. The government says they have issued, thousands of title deeds. But the coast region has the, Scotia Crisis.
Yes.
Since time immemorial.
Correct.
Is it still the same, and if not, what is the way forward out of this Scotia Crisis? People in their own home counties living as squatters.
The Scotia Crisis, we've seen efforts by the National Land Commission, as you've put it, and government to try and address the squatter problem. A good example is the Waitiki land in Likoni. Yes. And the government tried to help communities to buy land so that they can stop being squatters. It's going to be difficult because majority of the people, when they're as squatters, when they're given land, they actually go back and sell that land. And then they go to another portion of land and say they're squatters and they settle there. And then they complain and they cry, and then that land again is subdivided. They're given those titles again, they sell. But we also have a problem where the real, genuine people are not benefiting, because we have situations where people are coming to the coast saying they own land, which they don't even know where it is. You know, people are coming, they're asking, where is this and this place? You ask them, why are you asking for that? They say, oh, I have a piece of land there and I want to go there. So there are issues that we've had a problem with for many, many years. And we think that more needs to be done by the government, particularly the National Land Commission, to address the land problem. Because the land problem at the coast has been there since time immemorial.
Is it politically used? You know, if you look
at times it's politically used. Yes. During elections, every politician coming in, you know, they ask people to invade private land. They say, we'll subdivide this land, we'll give it to you, because they want votes. At times they promise people, we will get you title deeds if you vote for us. Of course, once they're in these positions, then they leave communities on their own. So yes, it has been used for many years as a political gimmick to hoodwink the public into voting one way or another, and unfortunately to date it remains unresolved. Now, even the titles that have been issued, the thousands of titles that you say have been issued, to majority of the local people, those titles have not been issued to them. And we are wondering, we need to do an audit to know exactly who these titles were issued to, because there are complaints that, you know, the local communities have not benefited from those titles.
Now, if you know, the coast region, the northern Kenya, which is a pastoralist community, have always complained of marginalization.
Yes.
But with the new 2010 constitution, and came devolution, which was seen to be, you know, a blessing. But it's 6 years down the line, especially in the pastoralist communities and more, and even in the coast region, things have not changed for the people for the better. Yet we have been crying of marginalization, you know, from the national government. Now resources have been devolved, and people are still talking of marginalization. Are the people from the coast and the northern Kenya, especially the governors and all this, are they marginalizing their own people?
Devolution has made a difference, definitely, but not what we expected it to do. Yes, it's true that like in the northeastern now, we have some 1 or 2 tarmac roads. Yes, we have a little bit of street lights at the coast and all that. But if you compare that with what should have been,
even the money that has been expended,
it is by far way below what we should have. And I think for many years, particularly the coast and northeastern region, because of persistent discrimination and marginalization, the people have not yet woken up to the realization that they have a role to play in ensuring those in power work for them. So I think what we need to do now is to empower the people, empower people from the coast, empower people from northeastern to stand up and demand services from their governments. I was in Wajir a few weeks back. I'll be in Mandera again. And we are already seeing that issues are not where we would have wanted them to be. But also let's remember that even though there is devolution, the national government still has responsibilities that need to be undertaken in all the counties.
Now, Hussein, sorry to cut you short. Some will say, especially in the northern part of the country, devolution has made things worse in the sense that people have now become more tribalistic, more clanism, and more tribal wars to an extent whereby, as you have just put, that we need to empower people to demand services from their governors, from their county governments. But there's such a point where people are now even polarized to an extent. They don't vote on issues, but not even at a clan level, but sub-clan level.
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
I think that's true. And again, I'm going back to awareness. We need to have awareness-raising forums and activities and functions and seminars to empower our people so that they understand that this goes beyond our clans, it goes beyond our ethnic or tribal lineages. And, you know, like I said, for many years, the Coast and Northeastern have not been open societies. And this is the time that we need to do this. You, me, Horizon TV, we need to do more. We call it affirmative action, so that our communities can now move away from that. Let's remember also in, like in Europe, where they had, this devolution business many years ago, they also went through the same. you know. But what we are saying is we don't need to repeat the mistakes that they made. We can learn from that. And I think the responsibility is on our leaders, particularly elected leaders, but also you and me with using the different forums that we have, whether it's
Getting
TV,
awareness.
whether it's Haki Africa, Horizon, to create awareness so that our people can understand their rights and demand for good governance and services from their elected leaders.
Great. Now, I'm taking you back to the economy of the coast. There's a summit coming up called the Blue Economy.
Yes.
I understand it's happening in Nairobi.
Yes.
And not in Mombasa.
Yeah.
What will you say about that, despite being the Blue Economy?
Yes, of course, we were disappointed to learn about that. The Blue Economy is basically about the oceans and, you know, everything that's there and how we can benefit from fisheries and marine life and all that. Yes, we are disappointed, but then we were informed that for security reasons and also infrastructure and so many other reasons that led to, you know, the decision to have the forum in Nairobi. But more importantly, we are saying participation of local communities. As a coast region, we want to fully participate. We want our fishermen. The other day we were having a demonstration with fishermen because of pollution. And now we are getting tilapia from the ocean. We don't even know how healthy those you know, fish are. But these are some of the things that we want to be critically discussed in this Blue Economy Conference, so that we can understand how to address most of the concerns that are raised by fishermen.
Okay. I've been being told that our time will be up in short time.
Okay.
But I'm insisting that we still go on.
Okay.
Now, on the issue of, you said that you have been in Wajir the other day, and you are likely to be in Mandera.
Yes.
Now, recent weeks, especially last week, there have been an incident somewhere in Mandera. Some terror activities happen, but as always, you know, sometimes the security forces overreact in terms of how they deal with the local people when dealing with such matters. What is Haki Africa's take towards what just happened recently? Yeah,
I mean, first of all, we condemn all terror attacks and, you know, the loss of lives from KDF, police and security agencies. We have to condemn these terror attacks and send our condolences to the families. But then we are also telling the police that we do not accept the hard tactics that they use on communities. This is something that is unacceptable. The police are supposed to be the primary guarantors of security. When the police turn against their own communities, then the communities are left not knowing where to run to. You and I are supposed to seek refuge in the police from any external aggressors. When those aggressors are actually the police, then you leave communities puzzled. What has happened in Mandera, particularly in El Wak and other areas where we've seen excessive use of force by security agencies, is definitely unacceptable. As an organization, Haki Africa is investigating those issues, and we expect that the DPP, but also the Inspector General and the KDF leaders will address this issue so that it doesn't happen again. The pictures we've seen are horrid. Animals, you know, being burnt alive. We've seen homes being torched and people being beaten. This is something that you know, is not right, and we must ensure that rights are guaranteed as required by the Constitution. Now, much as we discuss issues of Kenya, justice, equality, the East Africa region is undergoing, especially Uganda, some political challenges. Yes. And a young man has come up called Bobby Wine, who is more inspiring the region, especially the young people, that they must demand for justice. Now, I want your parting shot as we wind up the show. Give us your parting shot on whatever we have discussed. Also, not forgetting the issue of Uganda's politics. Yes, that is our camera. Yes. Yeah, you can use any. Maybe use this one. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I mean, East Africa as a region is currently undergoing metamorphosis of some sort, and we are in a special time where we need to take hold of our human rights and good governance and demand that we move forward as a region to excel when it comes to matters of the people. We support the efforts of gallant human rights defenders in Uganda, including Bobby Wine, and we want to assure them that we stand together. We know that in Tanzania, for example, the civic space is shrinking, The President Magufuli is, difficult in terms of allowing civil society to operate. Here in Kenya, we are seeing the challenges that we are going through, the economy, matters of human rights, extrajudicial killings, but we are telling the youth and the people not to lose hope. This is our time. This is when we take our region forward, and together we will move forward as a people.
As Hussein says, together we'll move forward as one people. As for me, that is the end of our discussion today. And we have nothing much to add to it. Till next Friday. See you then, and have a good evening.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.